Hey, I'm Maria back with another video. It's 1:09 p.m. and it is April 22nd. It is Wednesday afternoon, and I'm thinking about going back out for another ride or go for a walk because I'm tired of being cooped up in the house. I mean, background music and TV or YouTube videos can only do so much for you. So it's like I need to do something. I'm just sick and tired of being cooped up in here. But anyway, I wanted to make this video because, I noticed that first of all, I'd like to say that I know that throughout my employment search, there are people who are, kind of like wanting to taunt you over things that happened in your past. This is one of the things that they do when you are gang stalked. Okay, I'm not mentioning any names, but I want to explain myself. Okay, for those who do not know me, which everyone does. Okay, I had a pretty rough life growing up. I mean, I was constantly getting bullied in school, and I didn't understand it. I really didn't. I didn't understand what was going on, why all this stuff was happening to me, and everywhere I would go, I was dealing with weird comments from people, um, exclusion at times, gossip swirling around me, and this was going on for a very, very long time, okay, which I talked about. So I'm not mentioning any names, okay, but I want to explain myself, okay, because now the older I get, the more it starts to make sense. Now, as you all know, when I was growing up, I mentioned before that I was really enthusiastic about going to school and everything. And then come around high school time, things got absolutely unbearable to the point of where I could not deal with school anymore. And I think my family took it as a sign of rebellion, when that wasn't the case. It wasn't the case at all. It was the environment that was around me all the time that was very negative towards me. And I felt it, okay? And I do know that I had a teacher who went to the same church as my brother-in-law, my sister. I'm not trying to bring up names, but this is where I'm coming from, okay? Because the older I get, and believe me, I take responsibility for things I've done wrong in my life, okay? But the reason what happened in school with me was the constant bullying, okay? The constant power plays, the struggles that I never initiated, okay? Of course you had little spats with your friends every once in a while, okay? That's normal, all right? But I'm talking about things that were coming from other people, okay? So when I got out of high school, okay, I left high school because of the bullying, okay? And I left high school and then I went to a continuation school. And what do you know? Now that I think about it, there was bullying at that place as well. So I couldn't do anything. Everywhere I went, every job I went to, every school I went to, it was there. And I couldn't figure it out. I really kept thinking, what is going on? What is going on? And for many years, I kept thinking, why is this happening to me? And I really thought something was wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm a victim of systematic bullying. Okay. So for many years, it was very hard for me because once you're an adult, it's very bad. It's hard to go back to school to pick up where you left off. So many years later, I got my GED, and I feel as though my perps, okay, like to throw this in my face, okay? And I would like to say, now that I understand, and I'm not trying to create argument, but now that I understand what happened to me and what happened in my life, I understand that the reason why these things happened is because of the bullying. So why they like throwing this in my face, I think it's because they want me to feel like I'm a failure, okay? And I don't believe that I'm a failure. I don't. I believe that I'm somebody who I know, okay? I don't believe I know. I believe that I know that I'm somebody who had a very hard time growing up, and I did the best I could. And I'm going to tell you, growing up, there was a lot of confusion in my head because of the bullying. Like, I think now that I'm an adult, I speak more clearly than I've ever spoken before. Like, when I was younger, I know I studied, I stammered and stuttered over my words a lot of times, mainly because it was due to nervousness because of the bullying. And then I overcame it. Okay. And then, of course, years later, I got my GED. And so I feel as though my perps like to bring this out, like somehow they want to make me feel bad or demeaned because of it. The thing is that I know a lot of people have what do you call it? They don't understand the GED. Okay. There are some people who left high school early Like, for example, people who are 18 years old, they just don't want to finish out the year. So they decide to get the GED, okay? Mainly because they just don't want to be at school, so they get their GED. Some people grew up in, like, rural areas to where maybe they had to work and support their family. Even though they were kids, they had to support their family. So, the only thing they could do was get their GED. The GED was actually created for people who were going into the military, who were in the military, who didn't have time to complete their high school, okay? That was many years ago, okay? But I feel as though this is something that they constantly want to bring up. A GED is the equivalent of a high school education. It's the equivalent of going to high school, okay? So, like, sometimes you see job applications that have, like, your high school. Then if it has high school and it doesn't have a slot for your high school, what I was told by certain pamphlets that I read, that you just go ahead and say that you completed high school. It's a high school equivalency is what it is, okay? I think that they think that it's funny that they like to create so much trauma and drama into my life and then turn around and kind of throw it in my face. You know what I mean? But no, it's not something I talk about because it was like in my past. And it's something that I think is easily misunderstood by a lot of people because a lot of people don't understand. It's like, when they hear that you had problems in school, they keep thinking, well, you must have been a rebellious kid. You must have been this, and that. And that's not the case. I mean, sure, I did things that other kids do. Like, you go to your friend's house, you might drink beer or something when you're a kid. But I wasn't like anything like a constant party animal or anything like that. I wasn't like one of those rebel kids. I wasn't. Quite the contrary. I was more like, I was kind of like, I remember going and drinking with my friends or whatever, but I do remember having this very spiritual, religious side of me as well, okay? Kind of weird, but, it all panned out, in the end. But my thing is that I feel as though the constant bullying over that issue is like an open wound, trying to open a wound of some sort of, thing that you want to leave in the past. You know what I mean? I didn't leave school because I was a rebellious person. I left school because of being a social outcast. Like, I didn't fit in. They were constantly making me feel as though I didn't fit in. When in fact, I believe that if I didn't have these people in my life, I would have been fine. I would have been fine, okay? Because I know it didn't start off that way, okay? But with all the bullying and everything, it did. It ended up that way. So, yeah, I do sense that. Like, it's this hot constant, let me compare myself to Maria. You may have your bachelor's degree, and that's great. I mean, that's wonderful. If you have a bachelor's degree, great, that's wonderful for you. But I expect higher standards from somebody who claims to be educated. Okay, I mean, I know there's a lot of educated people in this world, okay? They've gone through the system, they've gone through the whole system, and they've received their bachelor's degree or master's degree or whatever. But there's a lot of idiots out there too. Because the most important thing about education is retention and the implementing, the being able to implement what you've learned. That means if you've studied science, then I expect you to be able to support yourself and survive a blizzard if you get thrown into it. You see what I'm saying? It's like, or if you're dealing with a social situation and you studied psychology, then I would think that you would never participate in something like this because you know the psychological effects of what would happen if you did. And if you did participate in it, knowing the information that you have, then you're just fucking plain evil. You know what I mean? It's just, I think some people think that because you've gone through the system that somehow that makes you intelligent. Intelligence and going through a system to where you acquire knowledge are two different things. They are not the same. Okay? I mean, you can gain all kinds of knowledge, but if you don't know how to apply it, it's worthless. Okay? But that's, and I'm not trying to say that because I'm like, trying to be in a competition, because I'm not, okay? But to throw this up in someone's face over and over and over again, you understand that that's just a form of bullying. You know what I mean? It's not something really, and that's confidential information. That information should never be told to anyone. If it's on somebody's job application, it's on the job application. That's between you and the company. It's not for the community to know. It's whatever. I don't mind talking about it now because it's like, yeah, I had a rough life. Meaning, like, I had a rough life. Like, I felt like something was always wrong. You know, I was constantly dealing with environments that I shouldn't have dealt with. You know, everywhere I went. Now, how they tracked me, like, for example, because I remember there was a time where I was in Los Angeles. God knows what I was doing. And I just remember sitting by this window and I was typing something. I must have been at a job or something, but it was a long, long time ago. And I kept thinking, why do I felt something. And now I think about it, these people must have known how they kept track of where I went back then. I have no idea. Okay, I have no idea. Because I know things with text messaging, email, and all that stuff, it makes it more convenient. But I will say that gang stalking is quite organized. It's quite structured. Okay. And I take responsibility for the things that I've done wrong in my life. Okay. But I do understand what went wrong. Okay. I had siblings who bullied me everywhere, who constantly wanted to play the 1-8 game and stuff. And so, you know, you throw this stuff back at me like, you know, oh, she got her GED. Yeah, I have my GED. I did. I got my GED. And it was a long time ago. And I think it's something that should be forgotten about. It shouldn't be fucking like constantly thrown in my face. Okay. I really shouldn't be. You know, I made the best attempts that I could to try to correct my life. You know, and there were times where I should have done a lot more in my life. But, you know, just like I am now with extreme anxiety, it is very difficult to do anything in your life when you're dealing with this sort of like constant bullying, harassment. It's not normal. It's not a normal environment or life to live. Okay, so that sets you back a lot, especially how it depends on like how your tolerance level is to deal with this sort of stress. And I will tell you, it's extremely stressful. It's extremely stressful. I don't, you know, it's like I don't talk about, you know, high school, except for like the fun times and the things I used to like or something. But I don't tell people about my personal life. So I resent the person who thought it was okay to tell everyone and their mother, you know, that Maria, but I will tell you why Maria got her GED. Maria got her GED because her life was unbearable. Okay. And I would also like to say that you can't be dumb and pass a GED. You can't. I know it's just high school stuff. Okay. But let's just say, for example, I pulled a 40-year-old person or maybe a 30-year-old person or, you know, somebody who was 20 years old, anybody. Okay. Anybody, any adult person. Okay. And I pulled them in and said, you know, take this test, right? Even though it's not hard. Okay. But still, there's a lot of things that you forgot. Like you forgot. Okay. So if you can still remember or still pass a test that you haven't seen the material in a very long time, I would say you're doing okay. You know what I mean? I obviously passed my GED, but my point is that, you know, I think people have this misconception that it's either for people who get their GED or either for people who are extremely rebellious or, and it should not ever be associated with somebody who is stupid. Because like I said, it's a test that shows that you are able to grasp the concepts of what a person who would leave 12th grade, you know, whatever you learned up to 10th, the 9th to the 10th to the 12th grade, is something that you're supposed to be able to know to pass that test, okay? And that was like a long, long time ago, you know? And so I do think that gets thrown up in my face a lot. You know what I mean? And people want to like see, oh, she's going to admit it. If there's a slot for it, then I'm going to put a slot. I'm going to say, okay, yes, I received my GED. If there's not, then you know what? It's the equivalent of a high school education. So I'm going to put my high school on there. Why? Because that makes sense. Okay. Not all applications are that, but is it the equivalent of a high school diploma? Yes, it is. You know, and it's like they constantly want to throw this up in your face. Those were many years ago, okay? And so somebody who's like at my age to talk about high school or anything relating to that is kind of like ridiculous. But this is the sort of stuff that happens when you're a targeted individual, okay? I do think that, you know, I think my people that I known in the past, you know, they didn't understand what was going on in my life. And I didn't fully understand it either. I just knew that school was unbearable. It wasn't so much that I didn't like learning, because I loved learning. I loved everything about school. I loved going to get school supplies. I loved like covering my books. I loved everything about school. I loved going out and getting new clothes for school. I loved everything about school. But what I hated was dealing with that environment. And that's what I hated about it. And so now that I'm an adult, I see, once again, I understand what happened to me. Okay, and there's a lot of target individuals or scapegoated kids who are starting to figure this stuff out too. It's like, wait a second, what happened? You know, because I went from loving school, having friends call me on the phone, going to birthday parties, having a normal life, and then all of a sudden, things start to fall apart. Okay, and it even got worse when a particular person joined the family. Okay. Some people think that they pretend to be like they're mentors, or they're like acting like they want to, I don't know, help this person. So they think by, bullying a person that they're somehow helping this person. You're not helping a person. You're creating a hostile environment. I've lived in hostile environments pretty much all my life. That's the truth. That is a 100% truth. It's not an exaggeration either. It's the truth. I don't need to have that shit thrown up in my face. I don't need it. I've gone through enough in my life, and what matters is what I do now. It's not something that, you don't talk about your what happened with your GED, and you don't necessarily ignore it either. It's just something that you had to do in order to get to this particular step, and it's not something you want to focus on. And for somebody to bring it up, it seems like it's some sort of hate tactic or something to try to hurt you. These people aren't my friends. Okay, I mean, who would do something like that? They're not your friend. But that's how you deal with it. You know what I mean? I know that when I took the GED, it did mention that. Like, what do you do as far as looking for work when it asks for this? Because not every application has a slot for GED. They don't have it. Some do, some don't. Some's just like, okay, high school, whatever, and then you just put that in there. But I do believe that that's a part of my targeting. They try to use anything. But let me tell you, the reason why school was a nightmare, the reason, it was not because I was rebellious. A kid who is constantly trying to study the Bible and try to shape their life doesn't have any intentions of being a deliberate rebel. They might, disobey their parents a little bit, because that's normal. That's normal kid stuff. You're going to get that, okay? But you got to understand, look at who I was back then. I was somebody who was studying the Bible and somebody who ditched school a lot. Why does a person who tries to study the Bible and tries to be a good person do something that seems rebellious? Is there a reason why? Is there a reason why this person isn't at school? Now I get it. I wasn't going to school because of that reason. It's sure as hell because I didn't have anything better to do. Because I will tell you what, days that I would ditch school were long and drawn out. Sometimes I would ride the bus all day. Sometimes I'd hang out in the desert. Sometimes I'd go to the library. It was just long and drawn out stuff that I would rather not do. But I knew going to school was a fucking nightmare for me. So, once again, the cycle of bullying has gone on a very long time. And I feel, like I said in my last video, I want to lay it to rest. But I want it to be known, okay, that what I've dealt with was a very destructive force. Like, it was a very painful experience. Not knowing exactly what happened, why it was happening to me. Because the life that I had painted for myself when I was younger in school was completely different than what it was here. Like, I never thought that, I never wanted to get off track, but I did get off track. And now I know why I got off track. So think about the things that you do before you do it. Think about what your teasing or your taunting really means. Okay, I'm very glad that you are successful and you have your bachelor's degree or whatever. Okay, and I know that seems impressive to a lot of people, but I'm going to tell you what, even if I had one, I still don't think that that's really that impressive. Why? Because like I said, unless you fully understand what you do with that acquired knowledge and you're able to live it and put it into practice, you either wasted your money and you wasted your time, or you got a grant and you wasted government money or whatever. It's like you have to be able to use knowledge wisely. That's what intelligence is. Because if you don't, then it's a waste of time. You see what I'm saying? So anyway, I just wanted to say that because I was thinking about that. I kept thinking, I was thinking about the cycle of bullying, like how they continuously do things to you. They create the problem, and then they constantly want to, like, ha, you did this, and it's like, look, and I'm not the kind of person to shuck my responsibility off. Like, I know there are things I did that were wrong in my life. I know it, okay? I can't point the finger to blame everybody or anyone else for certain things that I've done on my own. I cannot do that, okay? But this particular issue, I'm going to tell you right now, it's anything that involves the environment that's surrounding me. I'm going to say, I did the best I could. Based on what I had to deal with. The constant trauma, the constant bullying. And then I'm going to tell you what, it's not any peace, it doesn't bring you any peace of mind. Like, for example, when I was working over at the base, I would sit there and be like in a fetal position a lot, dreading going back to work. Same thing over there at organized sports. What is in my environment? Why is this shit happening to me? You know what I mean? I was a young kid, mind you, and it's like, I'm going to tell you what, young kids are, young kids in their 20s or whatever. I didn't deserve that. I didn't need to be shaped or molded, and nothing that you did was of any benefit to me. It was all traumatizing and a nightmare. I don't know why you seem to think that these sort of tactics are good or they benefit anyone. They've done nothing for me. They've made me more resentful, made me more cautious, you know what I mean? But as far as like, they didn't help shape me as a person. It only made me analyze what I don't like in life. And what I don't like in life is that sort of behavior. It was wrong. So anyway, I think that's something I really needed to say. I had to get it off my shoulders. So I'm going to wrap this video. For all TIs, stay safe.